Man, my hair today has just like wanted to stick out all these places, and we're just gonna deal with it. Let me blanket because it's cold. It's not super cold, but it's like cold enough to want a blanket. Hello. Hello weirdos. Welcome back to my channel. I am doing so well in this new year. It's just a, you know what, it's just a stressful time. And I feel like I am so behind on just making videos and making content, in general. Yeah, I feel like I've read a lot this year, but this year, content making wise, has been everywhere, from really good to just terrible. And like all the year-end videos that are traditional, such things like best books I read, worst books I read, I just have not made yet. Yeah, I mean, so today we're talking about the books that I read in December. December was actually pretty good reading month for me. I read several favorites. So let's just get started. We started off the month with greatness because I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I cried. It was really good. Yeah. So this, oh my god, this book. Okay, so you're following a person who wakes up in space. His name is like something Grace. His last name is Grace. So you're following him. He's woken up in space, doesn't understand why the fuck he's there, and has to figure out why he's there. And it turns out that, is this a spoiler? I'm gonna guess it's in a spoiler because it's not in the dust jacket. But basically, Earth is dying. I'm not gonna tell you why, because spoiler. And he has to figure out why Earth is dying. He has to piece together everything, and along the way, he meets that I really love. And yeah, I just really love this book. It has been a major bonding moment for me and my coworkers. One coworker and I were eating dinner together because we were both on duty, which basically duty is supervising places that are open past hours until late night because I work at a boarding school. Yeah, so I was supervising the academic student center, or not the academics, just the student center, and my coworker was supervising like the gym. And so we were both eating dinner together, like bonding over Project Hail Mary. And I was texting him updates as I was reading it, because I was reading it during duty. He found that to be very entertaining. And I cried, man. The ending of it, that's what got me. Like, just, and as a teacher, the main character in this book, spoilers, is a teacher. Everything that was said about it, like him being a teacher, the decisions he makes, and his students, and just the love and the decisions that he made for his students, just really got me. And I really understood that as a teacher, and I really appreciated that. So yeah, this was a 5-star for me. I loved it. It was so good. Okay, continuing on, because I can't talk about Project Hail Mary all the time. Oh, another bonding moment. Sorry, I'm gonna have to say this, but virtually all of my department has read this because one of my coworkers read it and forced everybody else to read it, and so good. One of the things I make my level 1 students do, so the people who are in like computer science 101, is we have to do a game, and I had to build one as an example, but also to like figure out how the functionality of what we were giving them works, because we're doing a lot of like visual things and like rendering things that I don't have a lot of expertise in. So I'm very much like up the creek without a paddle on a lot of this stuff. So I had to build a game, and so I built my game based on Project Hail Mary, and I will insert a clip of it here if I remember to do so. Yeah. So yeah, this book has I love it. I love it. Really good. Highly recommend it. On to a different genre entirely. And that is Persephone, Hades' Torment by Alison Shaw. I picked this up because it is published by Seven Seas, and Seven Seas has been publishing a lot of these books behind me, the Danmei, that I never thought would ever be published in English, and are. So I was just perusing their website looking for the newest things that they're releasing, and I saw this, and I was like, okay, Hades, Persephone, retelling, I'm down. I am quite down. And I don't want to say this is like disappointing, because like it wasn't. It's really hard to go into this from an objective lens when you have something like Lore Olympus. We do have, here's like a peek at like the art in it. I mean, I liked it kind of for what it was. I kind of wished it was longer, because it is just this one small volume, so it kind of goes through things like really quickly. I would have really liked to dig into what the specifics of Hades' torments are, and talking more about why Demeter is such a overbearing mother. And this is also shelved as like erotica at some places. I don't know if I just have a really warped idea of what erotica is because of fan fiction. There were only like one, maybe two scenes in this that could qualify as erotica. That's not enough. Like, if you're gonna show something as erotica, like, go for it. But again, asterisks. I don't know if that's just because I consume way too much fan fiction. The next book that I read is Below the Edge of Darkness. This is by Edith Widder, Dr. Edith Widder, who was actually one of the first people to capture a giant squid on camera. And a lot of this talks about bioluminescence, and a lot of Dr. Widder's like research in the deep ocean. I really liked it. It's like part memoir, part science. I think I would have liked just the science parts in this, but the memoir isn't like terrible either. So I think her life is, I don't necessarily want to say like interesting, because I think she does a good job of focusing on the science when the science is a little bit more important to the discoveries. And I think she does a really good job of breaking stuff down to make it very like understandable. So this one I thought was pretty good. The next book that I finished was another favorite of mine, and that is Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, Volume 3. This is by Moshe Tongchu. This we got our beautiful Yiling Laozi era has started. I do not remember when this ends. Oh, it ended in a really good cliffhanger. It's after the Sunshot campaign, and it ends when Wei and Wenqing meet up again. So that was really good. Really good ending there in terms of cliffhanger. Don't remember where it started either. I'm so good at remembering these things. I think I'm struggling because this is where it starts. So this a whole Sunshot campaign happens in this. There's a lot of backstory happening in this. And it is a angst-filled, I really like it, like section of The Untamed. Like, I have a hard time rating these books because I'm always or like talking about them and reviewing them, because I am so familiar with the story that yeah. The volumes tend to blend together to me because I know the story so well. I'll say Lan Zhan is coming out of his shell a little bit more. He's accepting his feelings towards a certain Wei Ying, and Wei Ying is just going through it. There's nothing else to describe it as. So I read an entire series this month that has quickly become a favorite of mine. I'm trying to think about, do I talk about them all together? I think I will, because that will save time. And I kind of just have thoughts about the whole series as a whole, and I read them like back to back to back. I finished one book in between the second and third books. So let's just talk about the whole book series. And that is the Captive Prince or whatever this is called. We have The Captive Prince. This is the first one. Then we have The Prince's Gambit. This is the second one. And we have King's Rising, and they all made me feel things. After I read The Captive Prince, I wasn't sold. What sold me was the second book. I mean, I thought the first book was really good. I think the first book does a really good job setting up the world and setting up the characters of our two main characters, and really establishing that like enemies things, and there really isn't any love or romance really in this one, which I kind of think is important because of the heavy material of these books. Basically, the plot kind of summary: you have Prince Damien, and he's first in line to be the ruler of his kingdom, and at the very beginning of the book he is usurped by his half-brother, and all of his servants and slaves are murdered, and he is actually sold into sexual slavery to another kingdom, to our other main person, Laurent. Laurent is also like first in line to be like ruling his kingdom, but his kingdom is also being usurped by his uncle, who is the current regent, and a massive asshole, and rapist and pedophile. So the first book really follows the two of them in Laurent's land. Damien is really trying to find his footing there and how to escape, and is really trying to learn how to hide his identity as the prince of this other kingdom in hostile territory and survive, basically. That's kind of first book is all about. Second book, they have to go off on they're sent off basically to war. Laurent and Damien are not sent off together, but Laurent takes Damien with him, and their relationship really is much more of what grows in this book. Once you remove it from all of the like social structure and pressures that are put on both of them, by this book they've both learned to trust each other and respect each other. This is when their romance really starts blossoming. I was here for it, I'm not gonna lie. I think it really works to take them out of that like setting and have them on the road, because you have a small group of characters who are really trying to whip this battalion that is not typically a like battalion for war. Into shape is not the correct word, but make them into a fighting battalion when they really don't start that way. And Damien has a lot of battle experience, and so does Laurent, and so they have to work together to survive out in the field where there are constant coups and constant people trying to murder them. So that is The Prince's Gambit, and the third one is King's Rising. This one, shit goes down, man. By the end of this book, I don't know how much spoilers to go into, but stuff is revealed about Damianos at the end of this book that heavily changes stuff for this book and their relationship. And I wanted to scream at all of the characters, especially Damien and Laurent, because they were both being stupid. I mean, maybe stupid isn't like the right word, and they're both being very stubborn, and they both were very restricted on what they could do based on their positions of power, and societal expectations, and trying to maneuver stuff politically. So I really enjoyed all of that aspect of these books, which I was not expecting to find. That being said, this book series is not for everybody. It is intense. It has a lot of dark themes in it. Like I said, there's pedophiles who are, I mean, nothing is described like in super detail, but it's gross. There is sexual slavery in general. Very, very, very intense themes, dark themes. There is NSFW scenes in these. They start here. I mean, well, technically they do start here. There is a blowjob, but it is no way sent in a way to be romantic. I don't know. So just be careful when going into these scenes, into this book series. Like, if you don't like those things in books, you're not going to like this book series. I am here for the more heavier themes, higher stakes. So this really worked for me. And yeah, I like gobbled them up. I gobbled them up. I literally read them one right after the other. Highly, highly enjoyed these. I can't wait to read more of C.S. Picat's work. I have some of their other books. Next book that I read was The Borgias by G.J. Meyer. And I made a mistake in reading this book this month because this is a dense biography, and all my brain wanted in December was candy. This is not candy. Candy! Not candy. So I want to say I learned my lesson for the rest of the month, but I also did not. So if you do not know who the Borgias are, they were a very powerful family during the Renaissance in Italy, and they held a lot of political power. And once they fell from power, the people who took over after them went on a massive smear campaign and dragged basically every single family member's name through the mud and started all of these rumors. And a lot of these rumors persist to this day. Rumors about like incest and orgies and all sorts of like murder, assassination, political like maneuvering, which to a large part, a lot of the like more salacious and intense rumors are very much like untrue. And this book takes the view of basically wanting to tell the story of the Borgias, not only from when Rodrigo came to power, who was the like infamous like pope who had like the children Lucrezia and Cesare and like Juan Borgia, but it takes it a couple of generations back and talks about really the real rise of the Borgia power was with Rodrigo's uncle, who was also a pope. Just talks about all of that. So I was actually didn't know any of that of Rodrigo's uncle also being pope. He was like Pope Calixtus something. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. This book makes some very bold claims about things. I am not someone who is I haven't studied this material as much as this author has. Like, one of the biggest claims that he makes is that the children of the Borgia children, the most famous children, Lucrezia, Juan, Cesare, were not actually Rodrigo's children, which is pretty much been unquestioned in like the literature from my understanding, from my perception. When you read stuff about the Borgias, like online or other Borgia books, it's like, it's kind of accepted as fact as they are his children. This, I don't want to say it spends a whole chapter, but it takes steps to debunk it. And I'm kind of like sitting with this uncomfort of, I don't know whether or not to believe it. And we're kind of like at a place where there isn't a lot of evidence from a lot of things from way back then, especially way back then. It was the 1500s and before that. So, I mean, we do have a lot of evidence, but when trying to establish like whether or not someone is someone else's kid, like when you don't have DNA evidence to do that, is really, really hard. Yeah, and especially since you had this massive smear campaign that happened after the Borgias fell from power, it's kind of like, it's really, really hard to separate fact from fiction with the Borgia myth. And I think that is really what this book seeks to do. It was very, very interesting. I will say that. You know how I said that I learned my lesson and didn't read any more like not candy books? Well, I read Catherine the Great. This is by Robert K. Massey. This is a thick biography of Catherine the Great. That was a stupid decision. I was very stupid in December. I think I enjoyed this more than I did the Borgias, just because I think I knew a lot less about Catherine the Great, and it doesn't make as many bold claims. Yeah, I felt like I learned so much about Catherine, and like, I don't know, I just, like, what it was like for her to be in Russia married to her husband, and the coup, and the, I don't know. I just really, really enjoyed this. I will say, though, I didn't understand that her birth name was Sophia. So when I was reading the first, like, couple of chapters, when it talks about her life before she became Catherine, I was very confused. I was like, who the fuck is Sophia? It just goes to show about just me not knowing a lot about it. And I'm trying to check to see if they have, like, a genealogy in here. They have a map. Yeah, they didn't have like a genealogy thing, which I think kind of would have, I don't know, maybe I missed it in the beginning, but I totally missed the fact that Sophia was Catherine. I think I had to look it up outside of that, so that to me was not helpful, but didn't really hamper my enjoyment, especially once we got past that section and we really were starting to talk about Catherine, and he was using Catherine. I don't know. I just feel like I learned so much about this woman, the political know-how, and how trapped she felt. I really enjoyed just sort of learning about the like romances that she had in her life, and sort of like this arrangement that she and her husband Peter had, as basically like, yeah, I don't really like you as like a romantic person, you know, you kind of like pissed me off that one time when like we were teenagers, so like I'm not super into you, so I'm gonna have my own lovers, and like you can have your own lovers, and that's fine. And I don't know, I just think that is such a power move. I'm sorry. Like, I was just like, wow. I feel like that was fairly like common like at the time, but for someone to be in such power, and especially a woman of such power during the Enlightenment, which I'm sorry, I'm having like feelings about the book The Enlightenment that I read. I don't know, just having a woman of power at the time when you did not have a lot of them, and especially one that was able to acquire as much power as Catherine did and was able to hold it for so long and have the relationships that she was able to have. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and I haven't read another book about Catherine the Great, but you know what? I enjoyed it. Moving on to a book that I didn't enjoy as much, and that would be H is for Hawk. This is by Helen MacDonald. I've heard this like recommended all the time by people. I just don't get books like these. I really struggle with them because I don't really see the point in them. So this basically is about the author's journey training a hawk and raising a hawk, but she also goes and does this deep dive into this one book, one of the Goth Hawk's author, something White. I just don't understand books like this. I don't get them. They're not for me. I don't want to say I hated it. I just didn't get it. It's just not for me. I'm just like, what? I don't understand. I've read a couple of nonfiction books like this, and they're not for me. The writing, I think, was good. I think it was really well written. I don't get these books. I legitimately do not get these books. Like, why an author feels like they have to write this part memoir and also part deep dive into like historical research with that like they get hyper fixated on for some reason. I do not get it. I straight up do not get it. I thought that this book was going to be more of like a series of essays talking about birds, and that's not this book. So I learned my lesson. Continuing on to some candy. This next book that I read is Amari and the Night Brothers. This is by B.B. Alston. This talks about this young girl, Amari, whose brother disappears, and it really just tears her up inside and tears her mother up inside to the point where she starts acting out. I just want to go on a little side tangent about the fact that Mari went to this very fancy like school, and she was on scholarship, and how poorly the people treated her, especially those who were not on scholarship, treating her And I just want to speak to this because like I work in a school like this and I am not a student, and I didn't go through environments like that, but from my observations, and maybe I'm naive, the level of bullying that Amari went through just felt very over exaggerated to the point of like not seeming realistic. That was only like a little bit in the book. Take that like with what you will. The behavior of the parents, I don't think is that over exaggerated. Yeah, so the behavior of the parents is pretty spot on. But the behavior of the children, I don't know, it stretched reality a little bit too far for me personally. But again, asterisks on that. I am just working there as a teacher. And I do also make it a point to not try and know which of my students are on scholarships and which ones are not. Of my students, I do that purposefully, or try to. Tangent aside, I thought this was a really nice, engaging middle grade read. Amari, brother, gone. She starts acting out of school, gets kicked out of school eventually, and she decides that she is going to go find out what happened to her brother. Her brother worked at this very, very secretive agency. It's very top secret, like can't talk about the job type thing. People assume that her brother is involved in drugs. She adamantly denies it. And she winds up herself getting involved in this organization, and it went places that I wasn't expecting. I felt like there wasn't a whole ton of like plot for a large portion of the book. Like, I feel like it really picked up like at the end, and in the middle I just kind of felt like it just dragged a little bit too much. Maybe that's all purposeful, because at the end, when you do get the reveal of who is betraying who, I found that to be very impactful, and it's just important because we spend so much time with this person, and I don't want to give too much else away. I will be reading the second one because the second one won the, the second one I'm going to be reading for my Goodreads Choice project. It's the one that my dog chose. So continuing on to the next book that I read, which was Chefed Kissed by Jarrett Melendez. I think that's right, Jarrett. But I can't read my handwriting. This is a graphic novel. I felt very called out by the first 2 pages because it's sort of about this young man, and he just graduated college, and he is trying to figure out, he's like trying to find his new job, find his new place in life, like as a adult, which is squarely where I am in my life right now. So I felt that. But the real thing that I was called out for, I felt like I was called out for, is that the main character is like an English major, and as he's moving out, you just see him moving out like all of these boxes that are labeled books. My cousin, who helped me move in to my current living place right now, constantly roasts me for the amount of boxes of books that she had to move up to my bedroom because it was redunculous. And there are just other parts where you just see that his bedroom is just books. And there are books everywhere in my bedroom. Everywhere. Because I don't have shelf space. So he goes around, he's trying to find his job. So he finds his job working as a chef in this restaurant. And he takes the job because he thinks it's going to be fun, and there also happens to be a very attractive fellow chef working there. And I mean, I thought it was fine. I felt like the relationship between the 2 chefs was, I don't know how well developed it was. It didn't really grab me. I mean, seeing the end where they do kiss, I mean, not gonna lie, I love it when LGBTQ stuff is represented. So in that way, I like this book. So I mean, it's just one of those things where you just read it and you just enjoy the ride. I enjoyed the ride, and I just didn't think too hard about it, because if I started thinking too hard about it, it just would stop making sense. Especially with the bits about the pig. Moving on to the next book that I read, and that is The Tombs of Atuan. This is by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is the second book in the Earthsea series, and I predicted that I would like this book better than the first. And that is true. I significantly enjoyed this a lot more than the first. We are following this young girl named Arha, who is essentially kidnapped by people to be a religious leader in a cult, and which is highly fixated on death, and has a whole labyrinth underground. You follow her growing up as she is raised and put in place to be like the high priestess once she becomes of a certain age. I'm not using the right words, so just know that. It's a little bit more complicated in that, and it's all very specific to the specific religious thing that they are, religious cult. And everything starts going awry for Arha, or her brain, how to phrase this. Her brain is open to more possibilities of what life could be like once she finds a man trapped in the maze. And one thing that is very important about this labyrinth is that no men should go in it unless they are castrated. And this man is not castrated. I'm really excited to get on to the next book in this series. Candy. The next book that I read was In Deeper Waters. This is by F.T. Lukens, and I felt like so much happened so quickly in this book. So you have this young prince. He is like, I don't know, like the fifth of like 6 kids, and he has to go on like a tour of like the country, just like the rest of his siblings did, and his quickly goes awry. There is this boy, young man, that his family finds chained up, and the young man, this dude, releases that boy and is quickly traumatized because that boy jumps into the sea, and the young prince is just like, dude, what the fuck? I was just starting to get to know you and start to consider you a friend, and you're dead now. They go to port, and who does the prince find stealing things but the dude that is supposed to be dead? It's pretty obvious what the reveal of what and who this person is, this young man is. But stuff starts going even more south, because as they're leaving port, the young prince is captured by people. I felt like the weakest part of this book, funnily enough, was the political maneuverings of this. It didn't quite 100% make sense to me, but the part that I did really enjoy is learning about the 2 main characters and seeing their relationship grow, what they do for each other, which I'm not going to reveal anything, but it gets really intense towards the end. That's all I'm gonna say about this one. It was cute, I enjoyed it, but the political stuff is, I think, the weakest part of the book. Anyway, the next book that I finished was the Shakespeare Notebooks. This is by a bunch of people. I started reading this a bajillion years ago, didn't get too far on this, and put it down because I didn't think I actually understood what was happening. It's really hard to describe what this book is. I would describe it as a series of, like, it's the Shakespeare plays rewritten, but just the doctor and some of their companions in there as well as characters in the story. But that isn't always true. Sometimes it will be like one of them is like, there's like a sonnet, and it is talking like about like the Daleks and the TARDIS and stuff like that. Or it might be that the doctor is writing footnotes for something in on one of the like the sonnets, or not sonnets, the monologues. So it is supposed to be the, like, what it sells itself as is the book is supposed to be like newly uncovered notebook that Shakespeare wrote that had different versions and extra not thoughts and journalings that he did about his works, and different drafts of his work that was recently uncovered by historians. And there are these constant notes at the beginning, like this all in italics, which will be like, this section of the notebooks is highly put into question and debated by historians. And so in that way I found to be quite humorous. Yeah. So that's this one. We're getting close to the end. We've got 2 more books to finish talking about, and they were both awesome and amazing, and I loved them. Oh crap, I lied. We have 3 more books. I lied to you. I'm sorry. But 2 of the books were awesome and amazing, and I loved them. The first one that was awesome and amazing, and I loved them, was Self-Made Boys by Anna Marie McLemore. I was so obsessed with this book. I was screaming, and I was cooking when I was reading the end of it, and I was screaming, and my parents were very concerned, and they were just like, are you okay? You're in the kitchen, you have knives. I don't know if you are screaming because you have stabbed yourself or if it's the book that you're reading. And I was like, just ignore me because I'm feeling feelings. This is a part of a series that you don't have to read in order, nor do you have to read all of them. But the basic premise for the entire series is that they take classics and they remix them in some way. So this book is a Great Gatsby remix. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very skeptical because The Great Gatsby is not one of my favorites. I don't know what it is about Great Gatsby that just makes me not like it or make it not one of my favorites, but it is. So I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to be into this. And oh my god, I was so into this. This is the highest rated one so far out of all of the books in the series. And I haven't read any of the other books in the series, so I can't tell you if whatever. But I was obsessed with this. I fucking love this. How this book is remixed. You have the character of Nick, who not only is he a Latino man, he is also a trans Latino man. And Gatsby, and hence the whole self-made boys, Nick had to make himself into the boy that he wanted to be. And you also have Gatsby, who is another trans man. I was like, okay, I'm here for this. And I think that adds so much. There's so much more commentary that you can make on the times and having it be set in the 20s. Another thing, you also have Daisy. Daisy is still canonically Nick's cousin, but she is trying to pass as white in the upper crust of society. And yeah, there's just a lot more dimensions that you can have in this book. I was looking at reviews and people were talking about the themes and stuff like that, and in The Great Gatsby, and I was like, you know what? This is not English class. Who cares? Secondly, I was like, sometimes people just want to see themselves in stories, and this I thought was an awesome way of doing that. And I loved getting to explore what it would mean for this story if certain things were changed about certain characters. I love this. It was so good. And just, I don't want to spoil anything in this book, but the relationships that are built, and I haven't even told you all the ways that it's remixed because I want to save some for surprises. But read this. It was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. And I picked this up on a fucking whim. And I'm so happy I did because it was so, so good. The next book that I finished is not one of the books that I thought was amazing, wonderful, and best thing ever. I did still think it was good. And that is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I am constantly confused because I keep wanting to call it La Hacienda. And you search for that on Goodreads and it doesn't pop up. So don't do that. So this is a horror book. You have this young woman who is trying to bring herself up out of poverty, And she does this by marrying a wealthy older man whose first wife mysteriously died. And so she is brought into the countryside of Mexico. I believe that's where it's set. And she has to run this hacienda. Stuff starts to get crazy. It's one of those books where it's like, okay, is this really happening? Or is she just crazy? It's kind of like one of those, like, the house is driving you insane books. And I thought it was pretty good. Me, personal preference, I think I would have liked it to toe more of that line. Like, is everything she's talking about really happening? Or is it all just in her head? And I don't think it toes that balance pretty well. I think it, like, shifts pretty much onto one side, because you also have the addition of this other character who I forget his name. And he is a priest, and he is mixed mestizo. So he's like half Native American and half European, I guess. And he is a priest in this small town. And he is also like what was the term that they used for it? I don't remember. But he essentially is a witch. And he is like he is supposed to inherit like the traditions of like being a witch from like the valley. So he's like the main witch dude that like not a lot of people, like not a lot of like the accepted and not accepted, but not a lot of like the upper crust people know about it. But a lot of like the working class and Native Americans know about like his inheritance as this witch. I'm not explaining it very well. I really liked the relationship between him and the woman of the house, and I liked the way that it ends on that. And I thought that it was done really well. This book can be a lot. There's a lot of like trigger warnings for things, because it can get very intense, especially for stuff like sexual assault at a certain point in the book. So be kind to yourself with this book as well. But I thought it was really good, and it is the horror book that I read for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So, and the last book that I read this year, we're going to end it on a bang, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I was halfway through this book, and I was like, oh my god, this book is really good. It sneaks up on you how freaking good this is. You have this young woman, Rosemary, who, for reasons of her own, trying to start over in life, trying to make a brand new start. So she decides that she is going to fill a role on a ship that is like a mining ship, basically, called the Wayfarer. It's not really what it is, but if I told you that they like punch holes, you're not going to understand what that means unless you read the book. So I really enjoyed this. And you meet this delectable cast of characters who are all very different. And they're all so much fun to get to learn to read about and know their interactions and just see how much they truly care about each other. It was really good. While dealing with this mission that they get is that they will get a lot of money if they go and punch this hole to this one really hostile region that the government says is fine and is safe. I'll let you think about the plot. There isn't a super like there is a plot, so it's not plotless, but for the length of it, it's not a whole ton of plot. It's a lot of character study, not character studies. It's a lot of getting to know the characters and how they interact with each other and what they do for each other. And yeah, man, it was really good. I really, really liked it. I would highly, highly recommend this. And this is the first in a series, and I'm currently reading the second one, and I'm liking that one as well. Did not expect this to be as amazing as it was, and it was. This was a recommendation to me from the Boston Public Library. Standout choice and a wonderful way to end my year. So there you go. There's all the books that I read. I don't even know how many I read. Maybe it's like 16. I don't know. 18. It's 18. I read a lot of books in December. So there you go. there's my thoughts. Let me know, have you read any of the books that I read, and what were your thoughts on them? How did your December go? All right, I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.